Look at your dog tonight, sleeping on your rug. Safe. Content. We tell ourselves a comforting story about how they got there. We say we captured them. We say we tamed them. We say we turned a wild predator into a loyal companion. But the truth is stranger and far more humbling, because it wasn't humans who decided to bring the wolf into the firelight. It was wolves who decided that we were worth the risk. This isn't a story about human conquest. It's a story about a choice. A silent choice made tens of thousands of years ago by one of the most successful predators on Earth, a choice that changed both species forever. The enemy in the dark. For almost all of human history, wolves were not our friends. They were not companions. They were not family. They were not sleeping beside our fires. They were the eyes watching from the darkness beyond the firelight. Imagine living 30,000 years ago. No cities, no houses, no hospitals, no police, no grocery stores, no roads, no safety nets. Just a small group of humans trying to survive in a world that seemed determined to kill them. The sun disappears below the horizon. The temperature drops. The wind begins to howl across an endless frozen landscape. Then you hear it. A wolf howl. Far away, but not far enough. Today, that sound might seem peaceful, even beautiful. Back then, it meant something very different. It meant danger, because wolves weren't characters in stories. They were elite predators. They could smell things humans couldn't. They could hear things humans couldn't. They could travel enormous distances without tiring. They could track prey through snow, darkness, and storms. And most importantly, they didn't hunt alone. They hunted together. A single wolf was dangerous. A pack of wolves was terrifying. And if you were an Ice Age human, you had every reason to fear them. Humans were not at the top of the food chain. Not yet. Our ancestors were intelligent, creative, adaptable, but physically, they were outmatched by many animals around them. They didn't have claws. They didn't have fangs. They couldn't outrun wolves. They couldn't smell prey from miles away. Their greatest weapon wasn't strength. It wasn't speed. It wasn't size. It was cooperation. Humans survived because they worked together. And strangely enough, wolves survived for exactly the same reason. Both species depended on teamwork. Both hunted in groups. Both cared for their young. Both communicated constantly. Both were social animals trying to survive in a brutal world. In many ways, wolves were the closest thing humans had to a rival civilization. But none of that mattered in the beginning, because at first, humans and wolves were competitors. They hunted many of the same animals. They moved through the same territories. And sometimes they probably stole food from each other. If a group of humans killed a large animal, wolves would notice. If wolves brought down prey, humans might try to take advantage of the situation. Neither side trusted the other. Neither side wanted the other nearby. And yet, something extraordinary was already beginning. A relationship that would eventually change the course of history had quietly started forming in the darkness of the Ice Age. Not because humans planned it, and not because wolves planned it. It started because both species were trying to solve the same problem. Finding food. Life during the Ice Age was unbelievably difficult. Every day was a gamble. Some hunts succeeded. Many failed. A single harsh winter could wipe out entire groups. Starvation was a constant threat. Humans spent huge amounts of energy searching for food. But even during the hardest times, they left something behind. Bones, skins, fat, scraps of meat, half-eaten carcasses. To humans, these were leftovers. To wolves, they were opportunity. Imagine being a wolf wandering through a frozen landscape. Food is scarce. Prey is dangerous. Every hunt risks injury, and injury often means death. Then, carried by the freezing wind, you smell something. Cooked meat, animal fat, bone marrow, a human camp. For a wolf, a human campsite wasn't just a group of strange creatures. It was a moving pile of free calories. At first, wolves approached cautiously. They stayed at a distance, watching, waiting, studying. The campfire scared them. The humans scared them. But the smell of food kept pulling them back. Night after night, winter after winter, generation after generation. The bold wolves moved a little closer. The cautious wolves stayed back. The most aggressive wolves often got themselves killed. Humans did not tolerate threats. A wolf that became too confident could easily end up with a spear through its chest. Meanwhile, the extremely fearful wolves never got close enough to benefit. They missed the opportunity entirely, but somewhere between those two extremes were a handful of wolves that behaved differently. They weren't fearless. They weren't aggressive. They were curious. Curious enough to approach. Careful enough to survive. Those wolves may have changed history. Modern genetic evidence suggests that some wolves were naturally more tolerant of humans than others. Not because they were trained. Not because they were domesticated. Simply because personality varies in animals, just like it varies in people. Some wolves were born calmer. Some were born more social. Some were less likely to panic. And suddenly, those traits became valuable. The wolves that could tolerate human presence gained access to food. More food meant better survival. Better survival meant more offspring. And over thousands of years, those small advantages began reshaping an entire population. At first, the changes would have been invisible. One generation, then another, then another. No wolf woke up one morning and became a dog. That isn't how evolution works. Instead, tiny differences accumulated over thousands of years. The friendlier wolves survived. The calmer wolves reproduced. The overly aggressive wolves disappeared. Slowly, natural selection began favoring a completely different type of animal. Not stronger, not faster, not smarter, friendlier, more tolerant, more willing to live near humans. And neither humans nor wolves had any idea what was happening, because while both species were focused on surviving the next winter, evolution was quietly building one of the greatest partnerships in human history. And the strangest part? The wolves may have started the process themselves. The wolves that changed themselves. Here's where the story becomes truly strange. Most people imagine domestication happening the same way. A human finds a wolf pup. The human raises it. The wolf becomes tame. Repeat that process enough times, and eventually you get a dog. It's a simple story, a satisfying story, a story that makes humans the heroes. The problem is that it probably isn't what happened. At least not in the beginning. Many scientists now believe something far more surprising took place. The first step toward becoming a dog may not have come from humans at all. It may have come from the wolves. Think about it. The friendliest wolves survived more often. Those wolves produced more pups. Those pups inherited similar personalities. Then those pups had pups, and the cycle repeated. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev launched one of the most famous experiments in biology. His question sounded simple. How does domestication actually happen? Most scientists believed they already knew the answer. Belyaev wasn't so sure, so he decided to test it. He chose an animal that was definitely not domesticated. The silver fox. Wild, fearful, aggressive, almost impossible to handle. Then he did something surprisingly simple. He ignored intelligence. He ignored strength. He ignored appearance. He selected only one trait: friendliness. Every generation, he chose the foxes that were least afraid of humans, the calmest foxes, the least aggressive foxes, the individuals most comfortable around people. Then he bred only those foxes together. That was it. No special training, no tricks, no rewards, no punishments. He simply selected the calmest foxes and let evolution do the rest. At first, very little happened. Then the experiment began producing results. The foxes became easier to approach, easier to handle. They stopped running away. They started approaching humans willingly. They wagged their tails. They sought attention. Some followed people around. Some licked their hands. Some behaved so much like dogs that visitors could hardly believe they were foxes. But then something even stranger happened. Their bodies started changing too. Nobody selected for floppy ears. Yet floppy ears appeared. Nobody selected for curled tails. Yet curled tails appeared. Nobody selected for patchy fur. Yet white patches appeared. Nobody selected for shorter snouts. Yet shorter snouts appeared. Nobody selected for softer faces. Yet softer faces appeared. The animals were changing physically simply because scientists had selected for behavior. The experiment shocked researchers because it revealed something unexpected. When animals become friendlier, their bodies often change alongside their behavior. Scientists call this phenomenon domestication syndrome, and versions of it appear again and again throughout the animal kingdom. Dogs, foxes, pigs, rabbits, goats, horses. Across completely different species, similar patterns keep appearing. Reduced aggression, more social behavior, softer facial features, smaller jaws, floppier ears, curled tails. The world's first proto-dogs, At first, humans probably tolerated them. These animals weren't attacking anyone. They weren't threatening children. They simply lingered near campfires, watching from a distance. Then humans noticed something useful. The animals reacted to danger before people did. They heard predators first. They smelled strangers first. A camp with proto-dogs nearby was often a safer camp. Without meaning to, both species had begun helping each other. The animals got food, the humans got protection, and once both sides started benefiting, everything accelerated. Humans favored the friendliest wolves. The friendliest wolves stayed closer to humans. A powerful partnership was forming. Long before cities, long before farming, long before writing, a new species was emerging beside humanity. Not quite wolf, not quite dog, something entirely new. And soon, these animals would help humans do something no species had ever done before. Together, they would begin conquering the world. As human societies changed, dogs changed with them. When humans began farming and eating more grains, dogs adapted too. Modern genetic studies show that dogs evolved the ability to digest starch far better than wolves. This wasn't just domestication, it was co-evolution. Humans changed dogs. Dogs changed humans, and over time, the relationship became deeper than survival. It became emotional. Scientists discovered that when humans look into a dog's eyes, both experience a rise in oxytocin, the same bonding hormone involved in trust and attachment. Somewhere during thousands of years together, dogs evolved an extraordinary ability. They learned how to connect with the human brain. Generation after generation, the dogs that bonded best with humans received more protection, more food, and more care. Evolution rewarded connection. And dogs became masters of understanding us. Yet despite thousands of years of domestication, the wolf never completely disappeared. It's still there, hidden beneath the fur. When a dog circles before lying down, when it buries food, when it suddenly becomes alert, when it howls into the night, ancient instincts are still speaking, tiny echoes from the Ice Age, and perhaps that's why dogs feel different from every other domesticated animal. They didn't simply live beside us. They joined our journey. They crossed frozen landscapes with us, guarded our camps, shared our migrations, and followed us through the rise of civilization itself. One of the oldest friendships in history began because a few wolves were brave enough to approach a campfire, and a few humans were curious enough to let them stay. No master plan, no great invention, just two species discovering they were stronger together. Tonight, somewhere nearby, a dog is asleep beside the people it trusts most, completely unaware that its ancestors once watched humans from the darkness beyond the firelight. But now you know. And once you realize that every dog on Earth is the result of a partnership that began 30,000 years ago, you'll never look at them the same way again.